Rules are made to be broken, and while that defense does not hold up in court, we tried, I don't see any judges around here. While playing 5e to the letter of the law is fun for some people, tweaking the rules of the game is not only helpful, but actively encouraged by D&D's own sourcebook. When you find something isn't working for your group, it's often more helpful to bend the rules to fit the players as opposed to making your players bend to fit the rules. While there have been some truly terrible house rules proposed over the years, and don't worry, we will get to those next week, there are some house rules that have revolutionized the game and become commonplace at all but the most rule lawyer-filled tables. And we have our own house rule here at College of Lore. Clicking subscribe adds +1 to your charisma modifier. What's more, hitting the bell gives you 1 free cantrip from the wizard spell list. Offer may not be valid with all DMs. So, without further ado, I am the Penitent with College of Lore, and these are the top 10 house rules for D&D 5th edition. Number 10, 2-weapon fighting. 2-weapon fighting in 5e is, in a word, broken. At early levels, it actually outpaces the damage of most other PCs, but the second the party hits level 5, you go from having an advantage over the other players to actively lagging behind them. It works like this. When you're wielding 2 weapons, you can use a bonus action to attack with your offhand weapon, which in theory sounds fine if it weren't for the classes that benefit most from this, namely Ranger, Rogue, and Bloodhunter, needing to do a lot of other things with their bonus actions. The change to make it more functional is actually pretty simple. You can make a second attack with your offhand weapon while taking the attack action, negating the ability to attack again as a bonus action. Does it make them a little more powerful early on? Yes, but it actually balances out pretty well beyond level 5, and it's better than choosing to either not do anything but attack or just aimlessly hold a rarely used weapon in your offhand. As someone who basically exclusively dual wields as a Bloodhunter, this is borderline essential. Number 9, Inspiration. Inspiration was a new mechanic first introduced in 5e, and one that was welcomed by a lot of players. A few early adopters, and many since, have pointed out the inherent problem with this. While it's a great mechanic for beginners, a group that is already full of enthusiastic roleplayers should basically always have Inspiration. There are a few tweaks suggested to this, scaling expectations based on your group, only awarding for going way beyond your standards, and while that's fine, I actually prefer something else. There is a variant Inspiration where players are instead rewarded for adding a complication to the universe. The DM will ask a player, when describing the scene, "Tell me about the person that most catches your eye in here." The player will then describe an interesting new NPC, the DM will run with it, and the player gets Inspiration. It helps the players get more drawn into the game and sends a little bit of the world-building workload back onto the players. A good, simpler Inspiration rule is also voluntary failure, essentially agreeing to automatically fail an important role in return for Inspiration. Give that one a shot if your players didn't go to improv camp every summer like a certain D&D channel host that goes only by their title. Number 8, Prone Attack of Opportunity. As a great philosopher once said, I get knocked down, but I get up again, you are never gonna keep me down. Getting knocked prone in D&D often seems little more than an inconvenience, popping right back up and joining the fray as normal as soon as the turn cycles back around to them. Standing up, rules as written, takes half your movement to do, which is frankly a bit too easy. Some have suggested making standing up a full action, but DMs have been burned at the stake for less. A compromise? It takes half your movement to stand up, but it also triggers attacks of opportunity from anyone within 5 feet of you. This makes moves like tackling or knocking an attacker off with their horse infinitely more useful, without creating a stun lock combo. And thinking about it, getting up should be hard, and it should present a really easy opportunity for an opponent when you stagger up. Of course, this is a two-way street, so both players and NPCs will likely go for knocking their opponents down. Give it a go next time you really want to knock your players off their feet. Number 7, Stay Down. D&D has a habit of feeling more like a fight between superheroes and gods, players going down and popping right back up like it's Whack-A-Mole night at the Cleric Temple. Death and the stakes of hitting 0 hit points can start to feel less and less impactful with every healing word and downed potion. Getting knocked unconscious, even briefly, should be punishing. So a simple fix to add stakes is this. Every time a character goes down, they make a Constitution saving throw. The DC gets higher for each time you fail. Every failed save equates to a level of exhaustion, at a certain point just outright killing the player from going down too much. It immediately adds a tension to the game that just isn't there when you can get up and down without consequence. Couple it with number 8 on the list, and combat becomes truly chaotic. Number 6, Called Shot. Probably the first controversial entry on this list, but I like using it as long as it's done reasonably. You shouldn't be able to aim for an ancient dragon's brain, hit it, and kill the creature automatically, but shooting a weapon out of an enemy's hand, or else trying to cut off the hand of the enemy with a powerful enchanted ring, those rolls can be some of the most intense in your entire campaign. Several DMs have pitched different ways to make this rule work. Some suggest the player calling the shot open themselves up for an attack from an enemy with advantage. Some suggest the player forgo movement and bonus actions. Some have pitched -5 or -10 penalties even to hit, My favorite, I think, is the most standard, just disadvantage. This is, of course, coupled with narrative stake. Your axe just barely missing the wrist of the giant wielding the Ring of Winter is going to lead to a very angry giant and a very frozen adventurer. Number 5, potion bonus actions. You know what sucks? Looking over your list of weapons, abilities, and spells, carefully considering what the best course of action would be, only to get to your turn and realize, never mind, I need to drink Yield Gatorade, and that's my turn. Taking a full action to drink a potion makes some logical sense. I'm not sure if anyone out here can drink an entire bottle of water in under 6 seconds, and I'm legally not allowed to suggest that you try, but realism be damned, it's not a fun time for the players. This rule is simple. You can drink or help someone drink a potion as a bonus action. Some DMs rule only helping as a bonus action, some DMs rule only using it on yourself as a bonus action, but I'm partial to both. It makes your players feel more useful while also actually helping to speed up combat in the process. I do love this one. Number 4, Mercer Resurrection Rules. This house rule comes from Matthew Mercer. If you don't know who Matt Mercer is, he's the DM of Critical Role. If you don't know what Critical Role is, I hope you don't have any plans for the next few months or any Thursday for the rest of your life. Essentially, he suggests, when a PC dies and a resurrection spell is cast on them, up to 3 PCs can initiate a skill challenge to try to draw the character's fading soul back to life. After all of that, the DM makes one final d20 roll. DC 10, plus 1 for each previous death, minus 3 for each successful skill check, and plus 1 for each failed one. If succeeded, the willing spirit returns to its body, drawn back by its friends. If it fails, that's the end, and that's life, or death, I guess. If you're wondering, we did the math, and the maximum amount of resurrections possible for one PC is 20, if the rolls and skill checks all work out. Number 3, Sanity. This one is better for a horror or tension-based campaign, but honestly has its place in almost any campaign with any sort of gravity. After all, your sanity is probably just as damaged by seeing mass death by a rampaging dragon as it is by hearing a spooky in the night. This usually functions as a 7th stat or a number out of 100. The players can track it, but it gets even more terrifying if the DM privately tracks it. The idea is fairly simple. Horrible things happening makes you less sane, taking care of yourself builds sanity back up, and at certain thresholds you experience worse and worse mental health problems, until entirely losing your mind at 0. This career path, horror or not, has to tax the brain, and this adds a new level of gravity to everything. Can you tell we like things on the darker end of the spectrum? Number 2, critical hits. A critical hit is the best possible hit you can land in D&D. It represents striking your enemy dead on in a weak point in their armor or vital organ. That being said, why, rules as written, can it do less damage than a normal roll? There are about as many house critical rules as there are home games, but my personal favorite is this. Roll the damage dice, add the max number that die can roll, then add the modifier, doubled. I can see an argument for why that's too much, but it's better than potentially rolling lower than normal damage if you have bad luck. And have you seen our actual play? Because I do have bad luck. And number 1, critting skill checks. Alright, this is ultimately extremely controversial because people hate this house rule, but hear me out. I do not mean the dumb version of this. If you try to jump to the moon, will the big bad dead, or persuade the dragon to give up their whole horde, it doesn't matter how many nat 20s you roll, you won't get what you want. What you will do is get the best possible result. For example, you try to persuade the king to give you his throne, and on a nat 20 he doesn't even consider it, but he does think you're joking and laughs, entertained, instead of, executing you. That's ignoring the fact that if a task is literally impossible, there shouldn't even be a roll. Likewise, crit failing should have consequences, and while they shouldn't slapstick comedy die for it, it should go as bad as it reasonably can. And similarly to critical successes, if they cannot fail, they shouldn't roll. What does it add to your game? Loads. Being able to succeed in your endeavors to different degrees adds a lot of character to the world. And the idea that most of your players struggle over a castle wall while one player effortlessly succeeds and waits impatiently at the bottom creates awesome roleplay moments. This rule is understandably hated if you apply no logic to it, but just a touch of reason and it becomes one of the best house rules in D&D. And that's our list. Do you disagree? What are your favorite house rules in your games? Let us know in the comments, and look forward to next week where we take a shot at the worst house rules. Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.